Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call this session of the Board of Revision to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Ojibwe, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation and Treaty 3 territory. Today, I will be the chair of the board hearing these matters. With me today is Michelle Duncan and Carrie Linklater. The City of Winnipeg Assessment Department is represented by Jonathan Spacek, and our administrative assistant is Sally Caulfield. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rules in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision have been requested are described in each application, and we will be limiting discussions to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing must be sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to such matters must first be sworn in. Be advised, the comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered as evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it as well as the City Administration. We make our decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and will issue written orders that will be mailed to all participants as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or to classification, or otherwise the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to an application for exemption from taxation. And should you wish to appeal, information on do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing posted, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessment testimony followed by any questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by any questions. Each side will give an opportunity to summarize if they wish to. Once all the evidence upon an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You receive the board's decision by written mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, will form part of a public record. And today we'll be hearing items 5 and 7 that are on the docket. And Ms. Caulfield, you can please affirm both the assessor and the applicant's testimony at this time.
Mr. Assessor, could you please state your full name?
Jonathan Spacek.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Grayson Sharples.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the first matter that we have today is the property at 54 Adelaide Street. And Mr. Spacek, when you're ready, you can proceed.
Hey, thank you very much. Today we're looking at file number 23-335. This is roll number 13099068925, address 54 Adelaide Street. We have a 2024 assessment at $905,000. If we scroll down to page 2, you can see a street view and a above aerial photo of this property. You'll notice it's located in the middle of Adelaide between Notre Dame and McDermott Avenue. This is right in the heart of the Exchange District. If on page 1 I have some more information, but we have a standard what we have as a 2-story office space, so it's under our 2-story OFS heading. We have it built in 1910 and then an effective year of 1935. So we do not have any major upgrades on this property with the effective year of 1935. We have a leasable area of this property of 11,165 square feet. And if you look on page 4, you can see the income workup for this property. So that 11,165 square feet is broken up into 2 sections. We have 08 substandard basement at 3,960 square feet with a nominal rent of $2.92 a square foot. And then for the first and second floor, we have all 7,205 square feet at a blended rate of $11.20. So the rest of this property, the way it is valued, we have that total area. We have our standard OFS vacancy loss for 2024 at 6%. We have expenses at 3%, which is the same as all of our income producing properties for the 2024 cycle. We have shortfall at $8 a square foot. And then you'll notice our overall capitalization rate is at 8.7%. So higher on that capitalization rate to better represent the age of the property. Again, those all combined give you 905,000. And what I did for this one, if you look at page 5 for the comparables, I just, instead of using our global office comparable list that you're probably pretty familiar with, and I believe I used on the next one, this, again, being an older building, I did try to find some older properties nearby to see if there are any rents in that $11 range for the first and second floor. And I found 4. So I used comparable number 1 is 255 Sherbrooke Street. This is a 2-story OFS on Sherbrooke in West Broadway. Again, it had a lease starting in 2020 for 5 years, 12,000 square feet. So pretty similar to the subject property overall, a little larger, but at $13.50 a square foot. My second comparable is 268 Fort Street. So this is right downtown, just south of Portage Avenue. 268 Fort is built in 1928, and we have an effective year on it of 1963. It had a 5-year lease signed in 2017 at 7,000 square feet. So this is much more comparable to our total first and second floor space, but this is just a 1-story property on Fort, and it leased for $11.36 a square foot. I've also included 183 Kennedy. This is built in 1985, so newer than the subject property. It had a 5-year lease signed in 2020, 6,200 square feet at $14.52. And then I also found another similar 2-story office space with similar size on Portage. And this is built in 1974, so newer than our subject property. 2018 lease date for 9 years, and it was signed at $11 a square foot. So tried to get a little bit more specific with those comparables, but those are the best ones that I could find. If we turn to page 7, just to get to the cap rate quickly, you'll notice our OFS cap rates is in the first boxes on this chart under office, but you'll see suburban A and B. Most of our suburban offices this cycle, our office space is between 5.6 and 6.9%. You will notice that's the 20th and 80th percentile, but you will notice this one is above that 80th percentile. It's at 8.7%. So we do have a higher capitalization rate on this one to, try to reflect the older age of the property and where it is located, as it is overall tougher to rent the older office space than it is new suburban office space. So again, hopefully that preemptively answers a few questions, but we have included the mailer on page 9, but this property is owner occupied. It just has the expenses. And on page 11 and 12, I've included the COVID questionnaire, and they put that there was a moderate impact from COVID, but nothing specifically. It just put owner occupied for the rest of the space. So again, just a quick walk through the property, but if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sharples, do you have any questions?
Just one, thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 5, the rent comparables. Comparables 2 and 3 in South Portage, would that be considered downtown?
Yeah, you would consider south of Portage downtown. Like, yeah, like 268 Fort, 183 Kennedy, both located downtown.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question.
Thank you. Mrs. Linklater, any questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a couple. Good morning, Mr. Spacek.
Good morning.
Do you have a chance to inspect this property?
No, I have not been to this property.
Do you know when the last time it was inspected?
I don't have that noted down, sorry.
All right. And given its age, I think you have an effective age of 1935 on this. Do you know if... Okay. Do you know if any mechanical upgrades have been done to the building?
I have no major permits taken out. I did look to see, but it's being owner occupied by an architecture firm. So I did request some pictures from the owner of the basement space to try to get it accurate going forward. I'm not sure what the basement space is used for, but the main and second floor, from my understanding, are currently being used for architecture office by the owner, but I don't have any details on when the last, mechanical upgrades were.
All right. And also your comparables, none of those are in the Exchange, correct? District?
Yeah, for sure. None. There's not too many 1 to 2 story office spaces with net leases. I couldn't find any, at least.
Okay. Would you not agree that the Exchange District is unique?
Absolutely. It's mostly OF&D office space, as a lot of the larger spaces that leases out are in the larger, older buildings in the Exchange. But again, a lot of, more main floor retail with some office space above it. Yeah, it's definitely a unique area.
Okay. Also, in regards to your comparables, I think out of the 4 you presented, you've only got one that's sort of similar age, 1928, but it has an effective age of 63, which is, I think, about 40 years, almost 40 years off of the subject property. Is that correct?
That is true.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Patrick, I guess I've got just a couple. First of all, I see there is a nominal rent charge for the basement space. And do you know if it's usable? You indicated already, I was going to ask you if it was used, and you indicated you didn't know that, but do you know if it's usable?
I did inquire, and from memory, I believe it's usually spaces like this, it's as storage, but I don't know exactly what this owner is using it for. I did request pictures, but I've got no details back. Because in this case, if it was just old basement space, building like this, often in the future, if I got pictures back that it's just used for purely kind of basement dark storage, I would remove that space. So yeah.
Yeah, or if it's subject to flooding and not usable because of that.
Yeah, then for sure I would take it off.
Yeah. Okay, so we don't know that. Okay. Now I know it's very difficult to get rent comparisons, but I think it's been pointed out, and I know you did the best you can, so I'm not faulting you. You can only use comparables that exist, and if there aren't any, you can't. But do you think that I know that there's two things that I've already looked ahead at what the applicant is bringing forward, and he's insisting on a higher vacancy rate. Do you know that the vacancy rate that the model uses, whether it's reasonable or not? And if so, how you know that?
Well, I think the 6% for just wide range OFSs, I think if you looked at, for example, just downtown, I'm again on a property like this in the Exchange and even downtown now with the current market conditions, I think it's reasonable. But again, it's tough when it's owner occupied, but overall it can be tougher to find tenants downtown for example, an architecture firm as opposed to a smaller OFS on something like Corden or Academy, or if you start going away from downtown, I think it's more accurate to have a lower vacancy rate. But how accurate that 6% is, again, I think there's definitely a range, and it would definitely be harder in comparison to rent the property downtown in the Exchange as opposed to standard suburban office, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, I think that you're answering as best you can. So now the 1120 rent that the model was attributed to the overall rate for the office space upstairs. How confident are you in that?
I'm fairly confident in $11 overall. I would say from my experience with lots of downtown office appeals and the whole 2023 cycle is, like I said, the Exchange has not many smaller OFS being rented purely for office, but lots of OFD, so older office downtown building that's much larger square footage, has smaller offices within it, but many of them. And I would say those rents range from, on average, $8 to $12. Is $11 reasonable for a building like this? I believe so. I don't think it's out of the range by any means, but what exactly it is could probably be argued.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. That concludes my questions. And Mr. Sharples, you can then provide your presentation to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we'll begin on page 3 of our submission. Again, just a quick description of the property. It's an 11,165 square foot office property. It's located in West Alexander. The current assessment is for $905,000, and we are requesting that this be reduced to $717,000. On page 4, we just have a snippet of the current assessment. And on page 5, we have the valuation breakdown of our request. So we have taken a look at the blended rental rate for both the standard finished and the basement area. So this is for the entire 11,165 square feet. That had been assessed with a blended rate of $8.26 per square foot. And we are requesting that that be reduced to $7.50 per square foot. And then as noted, we are requesting that the vacancy allowance be increased from 6% to 11%. And that's how we've derived our request of $717,000. Again, on page 6 and 7, we just have the assessed valuation breakdown. And on page 8, the assessment map and satellite image of the property. And then some more photos of the subject property on page 9. So on page 10, we have our valuation. As noted earlier, it is kind of tough to find rental comparables for a property like this. We've identified 2 that we think to be strong comparables. The first one is at 115 Bannatyne Ave. This is pretty close in size at just over 12,600 square feet. This lease was signed in August 2018 at $7 a square foot. And then the next one we've identified is 54 Arthur. It's a bit smaller, at just over 6,000 square feet from March 2016, and it was signed at $8 per square foot. And we see on the bottom of the page here, we've highlighted where these are in proximity to the subject property. So the subject at 54 Adelaide is that the red location marker. 115 Bannatyne is the blue marker closer to the river. And the green marker is 54 Arthur Street. And so from these 2 leases, we're requesting that a blended rate of $7.50 per square foot be applied to the subject. And on page 11, we just have some photos of these 2 comparables. Unfortunately, we're not able to determine the year of construction of these properties. But just in looking at the photos, we believe they would be reasonably similar to the subject. And on page 12, we've taken a look at the vacancy. So this table is taken from the City of Winnipeg guidelines for income producing properties. And I've just highlighted the OFS property types down towards the bottom of this table there. And so we see that for the suburban office properties, they've been assessed using a vacancy rate of 6%, while the downtown office properties have been assessed with a vacancy rate of 11%. And so it's our position that given the proximity of the subject property to downtown, it kind of has more characteristics of a downtown office property than a suburban property, in our opinion. We believe it should have the downtown vacancy rate. So on page 13, this is the office and retail market regions from those same guidelines. I will zoom into this on the following page, but it is market area 4, which is the yellow area, is the city center. And then the subject property is just on the edge of Market Area 3. And I'll turn to page 14, which highlights that a little bit better. So the subject property is in the inner city market region, specifically within West Alexander. So this is neighborhood 105, neighborhood code 105. The arrow points to where the subject property is within that area. So we see it's kind of just right on the corner of West Alexander there, just outside this market region 4. On page 15, we just have some photos again, kind of showing the proximity of this to downtown in the Exchange District here. So just kind of highlighted. I know it's kind of, you kind of have to zoom in, and hopefully you guys have this in color, but we just highlighted that's where downtown is. The subject property is right there. And then just a further zoomed in picture at the bottom of page 15. So again, we believe that this is close proximity to downtown. It's probably one street away from being classified as downtown. And so from that, we are requesting that the downtown rates be applied. On page 16, we have some information from the Johnson report regarding vacancy. So just a few things. We've highlighted the downtown vacancy rates. I believe this is a Class C property. For 2023, the Johnson report is reporting 21.6% vacancy for downtown C-class properties. And for D-class downtown properties, it would still be 11%. This is significantly higher than what the subject has been assessed at. And then if we move about halfway down that table, we have the suburban vacancy rates. So we see for Class A and B, Johnson report is reporting vacancies of 18.1 and 17.7%. It's only the Class C properties where there's a significant drop off to 6.2%. And so we believe that the subject is more comparable to the downtown office properties based primarily on the location and the use. I mean, there's no parking at the subject. So the parking lot is a different roll number beside it. And so we believe that just based on the downtown vacancy rates that range from 10.4 to 21.6, that would be a better indicator of vacancy for the subject property. So to wrap up on page 17, again, we're requesting that the blended rental rate be adjusted to $7.50 per square foot, and the vacancy allowance be increased to 11%. And we're requesting that the value be reduced to $717,000. And the remaining pages in the document, we've just included the notice of hearing, the Johnson report we referenced, and the City of Winnipeg guidelines for income producing properties. And with that, I conclude the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Patrick, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Duncan, any questions?
Just in regards to the comparable 54, Arthur, I understand comparables were hard to find, but where was the similarities with that comparable?
Location was a big factor in this one. And then we do believe it is comparable in terms of year of construction, although we can't verify that. And then if you look at if you exclude the basement area from the subject property, we're left with just over 7,000 square feet. So it is fairly close in terms of that.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Any questions, Ms. Linkletter?
Yes, just a couple, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Sharples. Did you have a chance to speak to the owner about the condition of this property?
Yes, we have reached out. He did mention, I guess, going back to the conversation about the basement, he did mention that it is used primarily as storage. He did not, however, provide us any photos of the basement area as well. And he did make a note, for what it's worth, that the roof needs to be replaced for a cost of about $100,000.
Okay, and so the owner did not provide any pictures of the main floor or the second floor to you?
No, he did not.
Did he indicate the condition of the building other than the roof?
Other than the roof, no, not really.
Okay. Also, in regards to your comparisons of on Bannatyne and Arthur, are those leases still in place to the best of your knowledge?
As far as I know, yes. I don't believe we have the dates of those.
All right. Do you happen to know how long the owner has owned the building for?
I am not aware of that, no.
All right. I thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So, Mr. Sharples, you indicated you thought this property is more akin to a downtown office than a suburban office. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the basis of that is that the proximity to downtown, is that what you said? And the parking situation?
Yeah, that's correct.
Now, most downtown offices are on high-rise buildings, are they not?
Yeah, that is correct.
And this building is basically more like what you find in a suburb. It's two-story with a basement. It's not really similar to a downtown building. It's more like a suburban building, and it really isn't in the downtown. So, are you sure that it rates the higher vacancy rate that you've indicated?
Yeah, well, it is. Yeah, it obviously is a bit different in that it is only a two-story property. And we acknowledge that it is not directly in downtown, but it is fairly close, and we believe it would be more comparable to a downtown property than to, say, a suburban office property on the outskirts of town.
Okay. And I think you indicated also that there is adjacent parking, but it's another roll number. It's owned by the same company or the same owner group?
Yes, that's correct.
So they have parking, it just happens to be in a separate roll number, and it's adjacent to the building?
It is, yeah.
Okay, that completes my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think that we've completed this item. You'll receive our decision after we've made it, and I think that takes us then to item number 7 that we have today, which is the property 206 St. Mary's Road. And just a minute, I have to do this. Yeah, I got booted out. Give me a second. Okay, here we are. Okay, so Mr. Spacek, when you're ready, you can proceed. I'm not sure, but I think from what I saw, you might have a preliminary motion to make for it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a preliminary issue with non-compliance. We're looking at file number 23-350, roll number 0609110300. This is 206 St. Mary's Road. It's a single-story office property, owner occupied. The story behind it, from my understanding, is it was purchased February 12th, 2016. It was then subsequently renovated. It's been owner occupied since, but the issue is they've never sent a mailer in. So I reviewed this, and what I've included on page, if everybody could scroll down to page 11, I've included the header, the first page of our certified mailer we send out. So this is sent out after our normal mailer is sent out. When we don't receive a copy, we send out the certified mailer. This one was the 2020 mailer. You can see at the top left-hand corner on page 11, we have the tracking number LP 578615093CA. This is dated June 9th, 2021 at the top right. And what I've included under there is page 12. This is a signature card that was sent out. So we actually have this one showing, if you look at the tracking number, it matches. And then if you scroll down to, not scroll down, but the bottom middle of it, under delivery date, June 14th, 2021. And then the signatory name is the owner's company, Tasium Vincent Associates. And then there is a signature on there. So in a case like this, where it does look like it was delivered to the proper address, again, the grounds to ask for non-compliance. And since the owner has received the building, all their taxes have been paid. They're getting their tax bill, but we're not receiving a mailer year after year. So in this case, we would ask for non-compliance, and then from my understanding, this is 2024, so it would carry over to the next year for that first year, and then we're at the 2025 assessment. So
Yeah. Okay, so
matters
Mr.
what
Sharp,
you decide.
I'm sorry, Mr. Sharp. So you're aware then that because the mailer was not returned, the assessment department is seeking non-compliance ruling from us, which would require you to actually present first, and the onus would shift to you to show that the assessment is not reasonable, whereas right now, otherwise it'd be the assessment department's obligation to do that. The second thing is that if we were to provide the penalty, that would mean that if we did have a reduction this year, that reduction would not be received till the following year. And because the following year, in fact, is a reassessment year, basically that would make this whole application mute, because there would be no benefit. Because even if you received a reduction, the owner would not receive it. So are you aware of that?
Yeah, we are aware of that.
Okay. What's your position on the application that the assessment department's making?
Yeah, so we've reached out to the owner to see if they've received the mailer, and we haven't heard back.
Yeah, well, it appears they have, because we see that there's a signed signature card here. I suppose you have that in your material as well.
Yeah, it does appear that way.
Okay, so do you have a position that you want us to consider before we decide whether or not we're going to grant this application by the assessment department?
No, I do not have anything further to add to that.
Okay, well, I think that we're going to have to put everybody in the waiting room. We're going to have a discussion among the panel members, and we'll get back to you on our decision very shortly. Okay, thank you. Okay, I can indicate that we've had our discussion, panel members and myself, and we've concluded that the assessment department's application for non-cooperation should be granted in this instance, and we are granting it. I can indicate, Mr. Sharples, that you can proceed if you wish to do so. That would mean that you'd have to go first. But I can also tell you that if you were successful, it wouldn't really make a difference, because the penalty is that the applicant would not receive any reduction until next year, and next year's a new assessment year. So basically, I think the whole application becomes mute based on our finding now. But if you would insist on proceeding, certainly it's your application, and we'll let you do that. I'm just saying that I can't see any benefit.
Yeah, we understand the situation. We will proceed regardless.
Okay.
That works.
Okay, well, you can proceed then. I'll let you proceed first then, because the onus has shifted to you, and you can provide your presentation at this time then.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To just begin on page 3 of our submission. So again, just a quick description. The subject is a 3,169 square foot office property located in Norwood West. It has been assessed at a value of $882,000, and we are requesting that this be reduced to $619,000. On page 4, we just have a snippet of the current assessment. And on page 5 is the valuation breakdown of our request. So we are requesting that the rental rate be reduced from $17.46 per square foot to $15 per square foot. And then we were requesting that the capitalization rate be increased from 5.55% to 6.75%. That's how we've arrived at our value of $619,000. On page 6, we just have the assessment map and then an aerial photo. On the bottom of page 6 there, I guess the subject property is the building on the corner with the little red square, not the green pin. Our mapping software is just slightly off there. And then we have some street view photos on page 7. So on page 8, we've taken a look at the rental rate, and we've pulled some recent leasing of similar suburban office properties. So the first one we've looked at is 611 Corridon Ave. This was 1,661 square feet, signed in January 2021 at $13.50 a square foot. Next, we have 900 Corridon Ave. This is 1,848 square feet, signed January 2020 at $18.25 a square foot. And finally, we have 440 Don Ave B. This is 2,240 square feet, signed in January of 2020 at $13.50 a square foot. So again, the average and median here, we believe it would be reasonable to use a rental rate closer to $15 per square foot. And we do have some photos of these comparables on pages 13 and 14. So next on page 9, we've just taken a look at the capitalization rate for office properties. So it's been assessed with a rate of 5.55%, which we can see is below the lower bound for suburban office properties, which is 5.6%. And then so we've taken a look at the third-party data here from Colliers, CBRE, and Cushman. They're generally reporting higher rates than that. So we believe this would be considered a B-class suburban office. And for that, we see Colliers is reporting cap rates from 6 to 6.75%. CBRE is reporting 7 to 7.5%. And Cushman is reporting 6.75 to 7.75%. So again, these are all fairly significantly above the current assessed cap rate of 5.55%. And so based on this, we are requesting that the cap rate be increased to 6.75%. So in conclusion, we are requesting that the rental rate be adjusted to $15 a square foot. The cap rate be adjusted to 6.75%. And we're requesting that the assessment be reduced to $619,000. And again, the following pages, we just have the notice of hearing on pages 11 and 12. Pages 13 and 14, as mentioned earlier, are the photos of the lease comparables we've used. And beyond that, we've just included the City of Winnipeg guidelines. With that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Mrs. Spacek?
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, any questions?
Yeah, just besides the studies, what else, what other factors did you consider for the cap rate recommendation you're making?
Yes, I mean, this is based primarily on the third-party studies. The 5.55% does seem low. This is the only information we have provided for the cap rate here.
Okay, thank you. No other questions.
Ms. Linklater, any questions?
Yes, are you aware that a renovation was done in this building? And do you have any pictures from your client in regards to that renovation?
We do not have any pictures from the client. I do believe the photos on page 7 do show the exterior as renovated.
Okay. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I was actually looking at the same thing that Ms. Linklater just asked, and you indicate you have no photos on the inside. Do you have any idea how much money might have been spent to renovate over and above the acquisition of the property itself?
No, I'm not sure, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'm looking on the outside, and the outside renovations are, I think, really nice. You know, we look at the cap rates that the assessment department uses that are based on the model, and it shows that at the 20 percentile, the property, if it's a suburban A or B, would start at 5.6. If that would be at 20%, are you saying this property wouldn't be around the 20% level? It looks pretty nice. What I mean by that is, I think it might be nicer than 80% of similar buildings in the suburban area. I haven't seen the inside though, which is something that it's your obligation to show us now because the owner's shifted to you. So without photographs, I guess we don't really know. I can only use what you provided. But the question I have is, I know you haven't looked at all the buildings in Winnipeg, but would you agree with me that this looks pretty nice?
Yeah, it does. And yeah, it could be nicer. It's been assessed with an effective year of construction of 1998. Obviously understanding it was renovated more recently than that, but yeah, it could be.
Okay, that's my only questions insofar as that. Okay, thank you. Mr. Spacek, you can provide your presentation to us at this time.
Thank you very much. This will be quick. We are, Grayson did a great job explaining the building here for everyone. I'll just update a few things. So the 2024 value is $882,000. Again, built in 1971. It was originally that video seller, and then the owner bought it in 2016. An assessor went out. There were 2 permits at least taken out. One was exterior renovations for $100,000 approximately, and then interior renovations for them occupying the space was $150,000, and that included. Sorry, I just had the note here on my page. For the interior one, it's just work includes new walls, doors, glazing, ceiling, and millwork. So again, they just turned that the video seller, which is primarily retail, into I believe for lawyers, but or is it architect? But anyways, for smaller single-story OFS, very common, and now owner occupied. So the assessor went out in 2017 was the last inspection. You know, the building, the characteristics were updated on our system, and then that's where we're getting that $17.46 is the newer effective age, the smaller building close to downtown or closer to downtown, which again is actually appealing for these smaller similar types of occupancies. We are using our 6% vacancy, 3% expenses, $8 shortfall, and then as it's been spoken about, the 5.5% cap rate. Again, on the lower end, below that 20th percentile, but again, very common in our more renovated, smaller properties. So that is my position on this one. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sharples, any questions?
Just one. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just looking at the summary of all the rent comparables on page 7. Would you not agree that the average, weighted average, and median support a lower rental rate for the subject?
I would agree that the weighted average is that. And again, if using all this global market as just taking the average and putting it on everyone, that would make sense. But again, I'm not opposed to a higher rent being put on one of the newer ones, especially the smaller. So we just, the single story OFSs are, and I'll agree, it's just a different market. It's tough. It's a lot of them are owner occupied. So, but yeah, I would agree with you that the average of all my global comparables across the whole city are is lower than the subject property's actual model driven rent.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Ms. Linkletter, any questions?
Sorry, just had to unmute. Mr. Spacek, just to confirm, your brief is model driven. You did not make any adjustments personally?
Yes, absolutely. This is a model driven value of this property.
Okay, I thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, any questions?
No other questions, thank you.
Okay. And I don't have any questions either. So I think that any question I would have had, you answered, Mr. Spacek, in your presentation. So thank you. So this now concludes all matters that we are considering today. We will provide our decisions very shortly. And on the basis of having heard everything, we're going to conclude this meeting. So thank you very much for your participation, your briefs, and your attendance.
Thank you for your time, everyone. Have a great day.
You too. Good morning.
Everyone.